Okay, this video is part 2 in a series on how to configure Linux Mint. And in particular, we've got Linux Mint installed in an Oracle VirtualBox as a virtual machine. And we're going to configure Linux Mint to do things such as recognize thumb drives that are plugged into your host machine. Here I've got a Windows 10 host machine, and I'm running Linux Mint in a virtual machine in a window here. So if I plug in a thumb drive into my host machine, how do I recognize it in Linux Mint? How do I access shared folders from another machine on the same network? I've got a second Windows 10 machine connected to my Ethernet network that connects to my router to my internet service provider. So if I've got a folder on that machine, how do I access that inside this Linux Mint virtual machine? And we'll show you how to do that. And we'll also show you how to do some general housekeeping and clean up and get everything connected. We'll also talk about how to set up a network printer and some other things. So the first thing we'll do is some general desktop configuration stuff. You can see, first of all, it's got this beautiful background. One thing nice about Linux Mint is it comes with some beautiful backgrounds. If you want to check out the backgrounds, go into the control center here with the start menu and go into appearance, and under background you'll see a whole bunch. You can try those out. I really like those. You can also go through and you look down here at the toolbar, or the launcher as they call it, and you can adjust this. You just right click on this and go to properties, and you can expand the size of the text and the icons. I've got it up at 24, and you can, with a drop down, you can decide whether you want it on the bottom, on left, right, or top. Now the next thing I want to do is talk about how you interface with your host machine in terms of USB and other devices. And if you look in this window, there's a menu up here. This is a VirtualBox window. This is not a Linux window. And you can see there's a tab here for devices. And this helps you interface with all the devices connected to your host machine. For example, optical drives, network adapters, USB devices. You can see I've got some USB devices already connected to my host machine. I've got my keyboard and mouse. I've got a generic, and then I've got, if you got a webcam, shared folders. We already talked about shared folders in a previous video. So this is really where you interface between the host machine and the guest on this virtual machine. So the first thing I want to do is go into network and make sure the network adapter is set up. Now you will probably have on your adapter 1 tab you'll have attached to, and I suggest you try bridged adapter. I believe VirtualBox likes to use a bridged adapter to connect between this virtual machine and the host machine. So if you select bridged adapter, your network controller should show up here, and you should be all set then to do networking. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to figure out how are you going to connect to a thumb drive plugged into the host machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in a thumb drive into the host machine, and I just plugged it in, and here you can see there's a problem with the drive. I'm not going to worry about that. Quiet. So now I've got the USB drive plugged in, but I have nothing here that shows that I can access it. Well, you go back up to your devices, USB, and here you go. You've got SanDisk Cruiser, the one that I just installed. Click on that, and you should have a icon show up. Here you go on the desktop. There's the Cruiser USB, and now you can access it. So accessing a USB is really pretty straightforward and easy. It's not that way in some of the others. So another reason why I like this Mint. Now the next thing we can do is, let's say this main Windows 10 host computer is connected to a network, and I've got a separate Windows 10 machine on the network, and it has some folders, and I want to access those in my virtual machine running Mint. How do I do that? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to go to your other machine and make sure you've set up a shared folder and you've gotten some of the information you need to set it up. So what I'll do is I'll make believe this host machine I've got here is actually my other machine and show you how to go about and do it. So let's set up a new folder, and I'll call it shared folder. And what I need to do is set permissions on this folder to make sure it's accessible by this virtual machine. So I'll right click, properties, go into sharing, advanced sharing, and make sure you have this selected, share this folder. And you can change the name of the shared folder. I'll just leave it. You also might want to check out the permissions. Make sure the permissions are good, because if with a new folder, by default, it will give everybody read access. You can remove that and add your user from that remote machine with the password. In this case, I'm just going to leave it just for demonstration. I'll leave the folder we just made with everyone can read it. And close that. Now this thing is accessible. Now the next thing you need to do at that remote machine is you need to find out the local IP address. And that's really pretty straightforward. I'll show you how to do it here. You go to Open Network and Sharing Center, and then Ethernet, and it will give you Ethernet status. And you'll get a window like this, and you need to look at the IPv4 Internet Protocol version 4 address, and it will look something like this. In most private home networks, you've got a 192.168.0.4. In my case, the other computer is .3, but it will look something like that. And so you need to make a note of what that number is, because you're going to need to enter that in to get connected. So you close that and you make a note. So now what I need to do is I need to go through and set up the share to this inside my Linux Mint. So to do that, I go to the Start menu, go up to Home folder, and I go to File, Connect to Server. All right. Now, here is where I put in that IP address, 192.168.0.3 in my case, and I need to set the type as a Windows share, because it's a Windows machine I'm sharing with. And let's say the name of that share, we made shared folder. Okay, remember over here it was shared folder. So whatever the name of the folder you want to share, put it there. Folder, you don't need to add anything. Domain name, you don't need to add anything, but you need to put in your username and password for that remote system. And then once you've got that, click Add Bookmark. And also you can do remember this password if you want it to be open each time you run it, so you don't have to enter a password each time. And then you can put a bookmark name, and that will show up on your in your Linux Mint list of folders available. And then you just go through and connect. Now this isn't going to connect because I didn't set it up right, but I'll just show you how to do it. So that's basically how you can do it. And once you do that, you will get here, you will get these bookmarks, and you can just double click on it and they will be ready to go. So accessing a remote share really is not that difficult. One more thing I want to show you how to do is in the control center, you can go and you can set up a printer. Setting up a printer is fairly easy to do. I've already got one set up. I'll delete that, and I will go through and add a printer. So I hit Add Network Printer, and what I need to do is find the network printer. So what I did is I just turned on my printer, and here it is like magic. It shows up as a network printer. So it's really very easy to do. Actually, this was easier than doing it with Windows. So I can click on this, and then I can go through and install whatever drivers I want. You can just follow this step by step. It leads you through, and it will install drivers. And one thing I really like about Mint is that it's got a lot of these things available for controlling, for administrative, and all these things. In Ubuntu, for example, there's far less, and we showed that before. So that's basically the setup. So hope that helps. Take care and have a good day.